Okay, everyone, welcome back. Welcome back. That's fine. Yeah. Spacing out. So we're continuing learning Meimor HaDor. We're continuing learning our generation, my generation, what started to be revealed in Rav Kook's days, continuing obviously to be revealed in our days as we're learning this amazing Meimor from Rav Kook. It's really incredible. Just to catch us up to where we're up to. First, what Rav Kook did, he discussed and sat with us and tried to articulate the pain of the generation. Then he showed us inner leadership to begin to heal from the trauma, to begin to heal from the confusion, to heal from the pain that the generation is facing. Then last week, what we begin to see to take another turn. What Rav Kook did last week is he started showing us the remedy, how to fix this. Do not withhold light, as we discussed, but rather add light, give them more light, teach them deeper things. And today, Rav Kook is going to take another twist. He's going to now show us what's the diagnosis, right? When someone's sick, you have a good diagnosis. A good diagnosis takes a lot off the plate. He's going to show us not just describing the pain, not just showing us how we're all feeling and sitting with us there, but what he's going to do, he's going to say, what is the source of this sickness, right? Which is, it's amazing when you think about it, how Rav Kook was able to think and see so penetratively, so deeply, so pointing into what it's like. I remember, if I can say this publicly, when my wife was sick a bunch of years ago, we went to all different, Baruch Hashem, it's totally fine, but we went to all different sorts of doctors, and we were trying to find a diagnosis. What's wrong? What exactly is wrong? And we went to all sorts of doctors, and they gave us all sorts of crazy diagnoses, in which each impending diagnosis was some sort of life sentence, And then we went to a proper doctor, the top in the field for whatever it was, and the doctor was like, no, it's not that, it's not this, not that, not this, not this. Took off all the scary diagnoses off the table, and was just like, she'll be fine. It's nothing really to worry about. And when you have a good diagnosis, when you have a good, you have a good, sharp thing, so you know what it is. And that's, as they say, a good diagnosis is, a large part of the treatment, a large part of everything, So Rav Kook is now going to describe, not just describe the pain, but say where the pain comes from. And again, it's very deep what he's going to say now. It's hard to find the words exactly to explain what he's talking about. And we're also going to have our Hanukkah connection, of course, because Hanukkah lights burn so bright. It's right around the corner, a few days away. So we're starting on the page you'll have, the paragraph, Hamachla Hanora. Okay, everyone see that? Hamachla Hanora Shel Hador. This great sickness of the generation. Ein makoma hikari lo belev. Its source, it's not rooted in the heart. Lo beregesh, it's not rooted in feeling. Lo betaivas hefkeras, it's not just because people have competing desires and want frivolity, want to be hefker. V'lo biyadayim pu'ulot avon, and it's not because, right, he's ruling out, it's not this, it's not that, it's not this, right? Lo biyadayim pu'ulot, and it's not with hands that are pu'ulot avon, that are just running to sin. V'lo biraglayim atzos l'ra'a, and it's not legs that are taking people to bad places and bad advice. Af al pi shekol ele cholim v'nikavim hina. Even though it's true, all these areas are sick, right? If you have enough red flags, so you have a problem. But that's not the source of the sickness. All the running to do Averis, all the sickness of the heart and the feeling and the inner trauma and angst and confusion, fill in the blank here, right? All that are just symptoms. All that are just symptoms of what the actual root causes, right? In therapy, you want to identify what are the underlying feelings. What are the underlining problems? Okay, you see this. These are all symptoms of the one underlining thing that you're struggling with. What is that underlining principle? Aval yesoda, and I was going to spell it out. Again, he spells it out, but it's hard to understand what he means. Aval yesoda shalamach lehu amoach. The root, the source, the foundation of the sickness is the mind. Koach hamachshava, the power of thought. Just seep that in for a second. The root and cause of the sickness is the mind. Our minds are polluted. Our minds are corrupted. Our minds are sick. The power of our thinking is way off. Berosh, we'll explain that in a moment. Berosh piskat hamachshava, at the height of the pinnacle of thought, hachoveket hakol, that thought embraces all reality, right? We have not just our particular thinking, not just the cognitive thinking, the good thoughts, the bad thoughts. It's not just the electrons and neutrons of our thinking, the electrical charge of our mind, right? But at the power of thinking itself, right? We know that there's a power of thought, just like there's a force of gravity, there's a power of thinking in the world, right? We know even Hashem thinks, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila, right? That it's last in action, first in thought, right? And all over Chazal we see himlich os whatever b'machshava. Hashem has thought. There's a power of thinking. In the power of our minds, the power of thought, which embraces everything, right? Right? If you think anything in this world started with a thought first. This table, someone thought to design it, right? It started with a concept. It started with an idea. The power of thinking beyond the cognition of thinking. Mistuteret, right? Hachovekes go in our minds, in the power of thought. Mistuteret machla aza. There's this weird, strange sickness. Shehi amuka mikol safo murageles, which is deeper than language has the ability to articulate. Ubishvila lo yavin ish svat re'ehu, and because there's a subconscious sickness that is before the power of language, that we have the inability to articulate ourselves, right? Because of that, no one understands each other. We're going to explain what this means in a moment, at least take attempt to pull back some of the layers. V'chol hamik, right? Bro, you don't even understand me, man. You don't even understand me, right? But one person can't understand, right? There's this such subconscious sickness of the mind that causes a breakdown in the language that each individual is not able to understand the inner map of what another person is saying. V'chol hamikarim hatstadim shemayim, Samim, and all the other side factors, Samim heim nosfot lahagdil es hatarchovot shocholi ha'enosh. And all these other side factors that we have discussed, the sickness of the legs, the sickness of the heart, the sickness of the feelings, right? All these other things, they just serve in order to broaden and expand mankind's sickness. Ve'einenu, and our eyes, ro'ot, see the kalot, but yet they are dimmed. Yet they are not seeing. Our eyes see but are not seeing, right? So just, what does this mean? That there's a sickness of the mind that causes the breakdown of language for each individual to understand each other. So I had a few examples of this, right? That there's a language of the mind. When our minds, again, it's very deep what he's saying over here, but like when our minds are corrupted, when our inner map of reality is not aligned, language stops working. And on the other hand, language, when we use language and it's not connected to the inner map of reality, there's a breakdown in communication where people can't even agree on what words mean. So therefore, the attempt to understand someone else becomes totally muted. It becomes a failed attempt, because when I say a word and you say a word, because it's sourced in our minds, have this subconscious sickness, we can't agree on what actually the meaning of the language is, right? Which is something, it sounds abstract. it is, but it's something we see nowadays where there's a deliberate attempt to distort language to create a lack of inner meaning of reality, where the point no one could agree on any single topic. Words that are so simple, like what is a woman and what is a man, can't even be agreed upon, because every person has this subconscious sickness where the inner beliefs, the inner buy-in, the inner consciousness has been distorted, where when you use a word, a person can't actually begin to agree on what that word means, so everyone sees reality completely different one another. There's no general consensus of what in the world we're talking about here. So then when you try to understand an individual, it becomes almost impossible, because you say one word and they think that word means something else. Right? Because there's this holy hamoach, which is rooted in the sickness of the mind and the inner beliefs that we don't even realize that we're carrying within ourselves, that distort our whole entire worldview. So everyone feels more fragmented, more alone, more disconnected, more angst, because you don't get me, bro. Bro, you don't understand what I'm saying. I just feel so misunderstood. You don't understand me, man. Yeah, I'm so much deeper than that, right? Words can't confine my pain, brother. So it's like an amazing thing. Like you see this is like terrorists, right? Take something simple. Hamas are the bad guys, right? That's obvious, right? But if your inner map of reality is completely distorted, so now the Jews are the terrorists, right? And you're like, what? We're the terrorists? We're not the terrorists. Hamas are the freedom fighters. They're proper Al-Giuliani, what I call him Mayor Giuliani in Syria, right? Mayor Al-Giuliani, Al-Golani, right? Mayor Giuliani, right? Now he has a political party, and he's invited to the White House because he's a freedom fighter. He's a proper political leader, right? We can't agree on who's a terrorist and who's not terrorist. So creates an isolation of the klal. So the Jews are like, what? That's crazy. That's totally distorted. But when you have this subconscious sickness, a sickness of the mind, you can't even begin to agree, you can't even begin to be understood and work and be on the same page as the rest of the world, as everyone else. And that's true in a societal level for mankind, as Rav Kook is saying, and that's also true. That's true for an entire generation, and that's true on the individual level. So I once saw this video. One of my brother-in-laws sent it to me. Andy, my brother-in-law Andy, he sent this to me years ago, and it was a video of a guy named Uri Bessman. It was on YouTube. Uri Bessman talking about psychological subversion. He was like one of the head KGB officers who was in charge of the propaganda, and what he describes is the power of taking down a country. And when you take down a country, you have to start, 40 years earlier. There's a certain timeline to subverting a country. And one of the things that he talks about, again, is the intentional misuse of language, right? To take down a country so no one could actually agree on a single thing. It's like I was thinking like the Migdal Bavel, like Hashem distorted their language. It wasn't just the language that was distorted, it was their perceptions. That Rav Kook says over here, Ubishvila lo yavin ish vasar eyu, right? And because it's not just the language, it's the language is attached to a belief system on the back end of this subconscious sickness. So you have the subconscious sickness with the inability to articulate yourself, right? Which creates more fragmentation, it creates more existential angst, right? Where each person feels totally fragmented. I'll just give one more example of this, because this is going to set the tone for the next two paragraphs, right? Which is like, you also see this like with trauma survivors, right? One of the things you see with trauma survivors is they say like, I just can't explain it. I just can't find the words to explain it, because their experience was so unable to be processed. It was so shattering. It was so larger than life that it fried their emotional vessels. So finding the right language, because the mind was fragmented, So finding the right language, the inability to find the right language is not because they can't find the right language, is because there's a fragmentation of the mind that takes place that doesn't allow them to find the right words to even articulate what it is that they're feeling, right? So all the time you'll hear people say, you ask someone in therapy, how are you feeling? I don't know. You get a lot of I don't knows, especially with teenagers, But even with adults, you get I don't know, right? It's not because for the lack of language, it's because the lack of language is rooted in a subconscious sickness, right? So it's like, you always see like, oh, I'm not feeling understood, right? Well, we're not speaking the same language because our inner map of reality is different. And because our inner map of reality is different, not everyone's on the same page. It's amazing. And Rav Kook says all this just in 2 sentences. He says all this in 2 sentences, right? Okay, continuing. Gam, next paragraph. Gam bibli choker harbe hinenu roan. And also, without any deep investigation, without any chakur means to investigate, right? Gam bibli choker harbe hinenu roan. Also, without a lot of investigating, we see shahasiba l'kol makove ador he, the reason and the causes for all the sickness of the generation, all the pain is he rak hamachshava, that is thinking. Our perceptions are not aligned with reality. You have a conversation and I'm like, all of a sudden I'm feeling so upset, and my wife didn't say anything, but I'm feeling so upset, I'm feeling so misunderstood, But it's just because my perceptions are way off.
That's what I was trying to tell you.
Right? Hamon harav, right? The hamon harav, the masses of the people, amnam hu nimshach al zarim al yidei his gashut, where the hamon, the masses, are pulled away from the on the flood of hitkashut shel muhuma. The turmoil, hitkashut means turmoil or corruption, right? Shel muhuma, of the masses. Al yidei hasmicha al eze av toratitim shelo ve'al yidei kalotadas. The masses are swayed for relying on av toratitim, means authority, right? Shelo, of his authority, ve'al yidei kalos hadas, and for people that are weak-minded. Meaning to say, the masses, right? Our minds have become so corrupted of the generation that we get pulled away and drawn after people who call themselves authority who really don't know anything, right? Dr. Carlson and Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and all these Dave Smith and all these pundits that are talking about like they actually know what they're talking about. But what does it do? The belief system gets corrupted, right? The language gets corrupted, right? Tucker now says the Jews are the new Nazis. Right? He says it, everything without saying that. Well, he did say Bibi was like a Nazi doing the exact same thing as the Nazis are doing, right? That the oppressed now becomes the oppressor, right? It's such a corruption. So the masses of the generation, entire worlds get corrupted from following people who think that they're authorities and have a lot of buy-in and millions of followers on these things, right? On these platforms. So it corrupts the mind until the machshava, right? Until the force of thought itself starts to fade away, right? And that causes pain. That causes fragmentation. Aval, right? And this was true in Rav Kook's days when people were reading the secular literature and reading all the papers that were going around, the ideas of socialism, right? And everything like that was flooding the minds of the youth, which caused a corruption of the mind. But ultimately, Rav Kook says that was a good corruption. You read the Torah Aliyah, as we've been learning, right? Aval hasiba hapnimit, but what the inner cause, the inner reason, shemisavevet kol ele hi atznua hamachshavit hakolelet, is the movement towards thought that embraces a lot. Again, he's going to explain what all this means. Shematza makom b'mocham shel kochos hapalalim, that these thoughts have found and power within the faculties of our mind. That each individual starts to self-reflect on the richness of their feelings, of what they're finding in their heart. Through habituation, hamorasha berav ubeme'at chinuch, that they was hamorasha means the traditional, like morasa, the tradition of chinuch, whether it was a lot or whether it was a little. V'lo matza yadam lahamido al brura mikol tzadiv, and they're not able to establish their chinuch and the things that they received with any great clarity. Just to explain what that means, right? Again, each sentence is a mouthful, it's a whole world, right? That the generation, so not only is there these pundits and there's these things that corrupt the mind, these are external reasons. But what are the internal reasons he's turning to, right? The internal reasons is people begin to self-reflect and wonder about what have I really gained from my education, whether it was a lot of chinuch or whether it was a little chinuch. People start to wonder, what did I gain from all this? What was the net total? What was the sum worth? At the end of the day, I was in yeshiva from kindergarten all the way through Beis Medrash, and what did I really amount? What do I have to show for it? What was it really worth? Is this remarkable? So people start looking at their own inner experience, their own Jewish experience, their own chinuch, their own upbringing, their own seminary, their own wherever they went to, and they start saying, what did I gain from it? Is it worth it? And then parents start asking, I don't get it. I'm paying $30,000 a year in tuition. What did I get from it? What did I get from it other than trauma? What did I get from it other than crushing my kids' spirit? My kids don't even know Hebrew. That's in Chutz La'aretz, right? Right? With all my Jewish education, imagine going to school and you're learning English, and what you're taught as regular English is Shakespearean English. Right? You're now learning Shakespeare. We're learning English, Shakespearean English, biblical Hebrew. Now, of course, there's a lot of overlap, etc., etc. But you're learning Hebrew. Even the Ivrit class is taught not properly. So you at least say, okay, I sent my kid to Jewish school from kindergarten all the way to high school. At the very least, they should be fluent in Hebrew. No, they don't know Hebrew. Nothing. Right? So a person it's one of the scams, one of the big scams. So then a person wants to move to Israel and they say, well, my kids don't know Hebrew. Right? So you're grandfathering in generations of Gullus. You're grandfathering in generations of Gullus Jews. Why? Because you didn't teach them the language. You didn't teach them the language. So of course it's easier to live in another place if you're an immigrant here, you don't know language. Like, my Hebrew's not perfect, far from it, right? So you get there, you're like educated person, and you're stuttering over yourself. You're like, I don't know what to say, right? So be that as it may, so it's big mitzvah to learn Hebrew, be mechazik in learning Hebrew, but be that as it may, back to the piece, right? Which is, a person starts wondering about their own religious experience and to say, what did I get? I was sitting with a client yesterday who was telling the menahel of the school, the person's not the menahel anymore, for young kids, used to whip the kids. Whip the kids. I should have gave a disclaimer, Said he used to whip the kids. Not so long ago, we're not talking about so many years ago, he's not the menahel in the school anymore. He was sitting there crying, telling me. He goes, you know what that is? You know what that is? So of course a person's not from. Right? Or of course a person's confused. Of course a person has pain because of trauma. So you look at your own religious experience and you start, again, not everyone has it that bad, but you look at your own experience and you're like, what did I gain from this? What did I gain? More Musar lessons on Sneas? More this, more that? So you say, forget it. I'm out of here. Disenfranchised. Or what you see is, which is more common nowadays, is just apathy. No, I'm not quite going off there. I'm not going to do it, but I'll be from. I'll wear a white shirt. I'll dress a certain way, but I won't believe in any of it. I won't care. I'll just do it. Won't do it. Doesn't make a difference. Text on Shabbos. Don't text on Shabbos. Whatever. Okay, I like to sing a little. Right? So you see, completely disenfranchised. Not only is it the pollution of the mind from the outside, but Rav Kook is saying it's pollution from the inside. That we start thinking, well, what is it all really worth? What did I gain from this? A person goes, it's like, till their senior year, and they're learning how to learn. Are you ever learning? You're always being prepared for the next step, right? Is there anything for the tachlis now? It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. And listen what he says next. Again, thank you Hashem for Rav Kook, for this amazing tzaddik. He's just spelling it out. He's validating what we all think. He's validating our own experiences. Veheim domim shematzu veheim. So a person begins reflecting on their own chinuch and their own thing, and they say, "What did I gain from it?" Heim domim shematzu rak stadim keheim. It's as if they only found hazy things about it. Shel regesh blo das, feeling without any intellectual backing, without any feeling. Without blo das really means spiritual awareness. Shel pachdanus, of fear. Umore below ometz leiv, and teaching without any strength heart. So you find fear and anxiety without any power for life itself. V'yachas v'yachem livavam b'kirvam, and their hearts begin to melt, and their heart begins to tremble within their midst. Right? Fear, a lot of fear, and you have to wonder about certain communities where this is the MO of just fear-based Judaism, of just scaring them. You'll never be from. What are the two playbooks? What are the two moves out of the playbook? The two moves out of the playbook. Have you heard me say this? The two moves out of the playbook is shidduchim, and your kids won't be religious. Well, if you do that, they're not going to find the shidduch. If you do that, they're not going to find the shidduch. Who's going to marry them? Not going to find. You want a shidduch? You want a good shidduch? You're not going to find the shidduch, right? And the kids think this also. Oh, so I'm not going to be frum, but I'm going to look a certain way, right? So I'll get a good shidduch then. I'll get a good shidduch, right? And the parents, they make all decisions because I want my kid to get a good shidduch. But it's killing the kid. It's not good for the child. It's not good for them. What do you mean? Get a good shidduch. Or, if you do that, if you send your kids there, they're not going to be frum. They won't be frum. Well, they're frum now. Yeah, but if they go there, they won't be frum. You're completely not religious anymore. What? If you do that, you might completely go off the derech. I was speaking to my daughter the other day. I was talking to her about something, and she quoted a chazal, a very well-used chazal. Al tamim ba'atzmacha ad yom hamisa. Do not, she goes, but Abba, it says, don't believe in yourself to the day you die. Right? Again, I was like, I was like my heart went, I'm like, no, of course you're supposed to believe in yourself. At what point can a human say, I trust myself? You're always not supposed to believe yourself because you're not going to find the shidduch or you're going to go off the derech, right? That was said under Ayin Sham. That's a whole sugya, But it's not a broad cloud for life. Don't trust yourself, no matter what you do, right? Of course, a healthy person, right? As Rabbi Nachman says, and Reb Tzadok says, right? Reb Tzadok says you have to believe in yourself just like you believe in Hashem, right? Of course you have to believe in yourself. If you don't have self-worth, then you can never trust yourself, right? Umitoch shelo matzo derech slula. And because a person doesn't find a clear path, lahayir bor hadas al haregesh, to illuminate the path of life on the feeling, hamashumer meyamim hayoser atikim, that is protected for the days of ancient, v'gam hayoter tovim umasenu, right? And the days of old, the days that were the best, the glory days, right? We don't find a way path towards nevuah, right? We don't find a way to guidance, right? I was thinking like it's a big deal to have proper religious guidance, right? A person doesn't find the path, right? To get good advice from someone. How do I do this? How do I make this happen, right? There's not a clear derech. If you want to be a Talmud Chacham, if you want to reach a spiritual thing, there's not just a clear thing, right? There's this, there's that. It just seems fragmented. So a person doesn't see, well, how do I reach spiritual greatness? Do I start with the big things? Do I start with the little things? What do I do? Right? L'romei malkol nekudas hapratis. Person doesn't see a path. They were never educated and taught a path. Right? How to reach spiritual greatness, to go beyond the mundane and the details of life. Ad nekuda hagavol shel seichel hamisnaseh. Right? Up until the high level of understanding. Therefore, hachoves v'hachoker nesivas olam, the seeker, the one who wants more, and the one who wants to understand about the paths of life. Hachafetz lissolo es orcho b'mada ha'chaim hamodez lamala afil haromas hametafisit. Right? Even the person who wants to traverse the paths of life in order to reach a spiritual plane of metaphysical reality that you learn about of the tzaddikim, of the Navi, of the people of the Torah, of Moshe Rabbeinu. I want to be like Moshe. How in the world do I do that? But they don't have the right guidance in order to even attain such a thing. So what's the fallout? Al kain panalo el hazilzo veshlila. Therefore, a person turns to a foreign god of embarrassment and negativity. Mikav leiv menefesh mara, and an embittered soul and depressed heart. Ma'afes token l'chaim, nisfachu rabim liluchavim, to a place of life that has no inner content, that feels deeply embattled. B'maflugat ke'ela. And in these ways, shelo yakirim shem mekom klal, and then they fall to a place where you can't even begin. Shelo yakirim sham makom klal, where these basic spiritual principles become completely unrecognizable. Umoser meschelim lezarim, and then they give over their strength and their embattlement to foreign things, and they say, "Forget it, I'm out of here." Right? So you see this amazing thing that a person doesn't have the right direction and the inner map of reality to align themselves with Kedusha and Tahara, because they were never pointed in the right direction even to begin with. Because it's the Meimor HaDor, it's the generation is confused. The leaders are also confused, right? So you get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then before you know it, you have a million different drachim, and you have no idea what to do with yourself until a person feels that they're completely drowning. Because the inner map of reality doesn't align with the current reality that they actually live in, because they want so much, like we're saying, a generation that claims so much, but yet is not able to find the language and the ability to express themselves and meet their needs. Because of the pollution of the mind and the corruption of the experiences that we've all been through. And again, like Rav Kook is saying this about what happened in his day. What happened in began in his day was certainly more true in our generation. And of course, there's a Hanukkah connection, how this perfectly overlays with Hanukkah. That the Yevanim, the Greeks, they didn't want to destroy, just to destroy the base Hamikdash. What the Yevanim want to do? They tried to destroy the Jewish mind, the Moach, right? The worldview, the inner wisdom, and our cultural identity. Be Jewish, just be Greek. Right? They wanted to take away our cultural identity, right? They wanted to pollute the mind of the people, the inner map of reality, to say, you could do that, but just don't be so frum. You could do that, but not nevuah, right? And that Hanukkah is a war over consciousness. It's a war over worldview and the inner meaning of life, to show the Yevanim are saying there's no inner meaning here, there's no depth, believe what we believe, right? And we're saying, no, we're not going to believe what you believe. And that's the defiled, the heichel, the inner mapping of reality, right? And what's the answer to Hanukkah? What is the thing that we do, right? Is that we need to show them the light, right? That's the Pach Shemen. We're showing that the war is not just a physical war, but it's a spiritual war. By adding light, we illuminate the darkness, right? Everyone knows the Pach Shemen, the little bit of oil. And that Hanukkah is the liminal holiday. It's the holiday that's in between generations, right? Because it's exactly like in our generation that it was in between the first and second base Hamikdash that this happened, when the generation was now mapping itself to a new consciousness, right? It's okay, it's fine, they're going to start chakras, right? That the generation was mapping itself to a new consciousness, right? And it was in that new consciousness, right, that we're in, the same thing that Rav Kook is saying in Meimor HaDor, right, that there becomes a new inner mapping of reality, and a new need for a way to educate ourselves, and a new need to grab onto reality, to fight, to say we're not going to listen to the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Yevanim of the world, the people that just want to defile us and cause more fragmentation, that we need to meet the cause and step up to the demand by revealing the light, not holding back the light, but giving more and more light. It's amazing.